The only word to describe the latest news cycle is stunning. Stunning that Trump got shot. Stunning that the Secret Service security measures were so lax. And in the video you're about to see, there's something stunning as well. In a campaign that has been characterized by much volatile rhetoric and aggressive finger-pointing, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas appeared on CNN to face tough questions while also calling for a lowering of the antagonistic campaign rhetoric. He also jumped ahead of this critical issue and assumed full accountability for determining the failures that resulted in the death of a retired firefighter, the botched assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, and the innocent victims who were wounded in the shooting. As we know, Secretary Mayorkas is often criticized, maligned, or worse, by MAGA conservatives.
The yeas are 214 and the nays are 216. The resolution is not adopted.
A major failure for the Speaker of the House.
But today, Mayorkas not only took the heat for the failures of the Secret Service, but he was adamant about determining how this happened, and most importantly, what can be done in this volatile election season to best protect the candidates and their supporters. As you know, the Secret Service has faced intense criticism since a gunman opened fire during Trump's rally on Saturday. A bullet grazed Trump's ear while one rally attendee was killed and another two were critically injured. Now, GOP lawmakers are pledging congressional investigations into the shooting, and Biden has directed an independent review of the rally's security. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle said the agency will cooperate with the independent review and congressional investigations. The Secret Service is a law enforcement agency. It's housed within the Department of Homeland Security. So following the shooting on Saturday, Alejandro Mayorkas indicated that the department and the Secret Service were working with local law enforcement to respond and to investigate the incident. Nevertheless, some Republican legislators, like Mike Waltz from Florida, have seized the moment to cast further aspersions on the secretary and the departments he oversees.
I did want to ask you, because this has popped up, Republican Congressman Mike Waltz. He said on social media on Saturday, and I'm going to read this for you because it does talk about you, Secretary. I have very reliable sources telling me that there have been repeated requests for stronger Secret Service protection for President Trump denied by Secretary Mayorkas. Your department has already pushed back on that, calling that absolutely false, but he is putting this on you. Can you respond to that, please?
Well, that's a baseless and irresponsible statement, and is one that is unequivocally false.
And when pressed on CNN earlier today, the demeanor Mayorkas reflected underscored the seriousness of the situation. But he also seized the high ground of culpability and did not shrink, not for a second, when asked point blank about the agency's failures and future protocol and procedures that will be instituted moving ahead.
But what level of failure was it? I mean, it's been called by some lawmakers a security failure at the highest level. We now know, just this morning, we learned the Secret Service director in her first public comments said this: the Secret Service is working with all involved federal, state, and local agencies to understand what happened, how it happened, and how we can prevent an incident like this from ever taking place again. But Secretary, do you call this a security failure on the part of the Secret Service?
As you're about to see, Mayorkas sat calmly in the hot seat and did not backpedal or whitewash the reality of the circumstances. Instead, he offered an unequivocal and unflinching response. And after this clip from today's incredible interview on CNN, we'll also show you the Homeland Security Secretary's late-breaking announcement regarding Robert Kennedy Jr. and the newly chosen VP nominee J.D. Vance. But first, let's watch this unreserved response to Baldwin's pivotal question from Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas.
Do you agree that it was a failure? You said this cannot happen, but first and foremost, before you make sure you make the changes, you have to acknowledge what a failure this was.
Kate, when I say that something like this cannot happen, we are speaking of a failure. We are going to analyze through an independent review how that occurred, why it occurred, and make recommendations and findings to make sure it doesn't happen again. I couldn't be clearer.
And I sincerely appreciate the clarity on this.
Well, each day brings incredible new turns of events, in an election the likes of which 248 years of democracy has never seen before. But with each stunning new event, as voters, we can seize that opportunity to gauge the reaction of the candidates and their subordinates, and we should evaluate each one of these twists and turns as a test of character and poise, the real-world kind, not the manufactured made-for-TV kind. And by that measure, we see President Biden leading again, in this case, reading the political realities and taking proper measures to fulfill his responsibilities as president and ensure the safety of all of our citizens, no matter their political perspective or ambitions. Well, here's a recent security update from Secretary Mayorkas about Robert Kennedy Jr. and J.D. Vance.
In light of this weekend's events, the President has directed me to work with the Secret Service to provide protection to Robert Kennedy Jr.
In the time that you've been here, the former president has selected J.D. Vance. What can you tell us about the security for the running mate?
So the United States Secret Service, when a selection is made, will provide the appropriate level of security.
And so the show must go on, and while we can only imagine the final act of this passion play, until we know if democracy prevails, we must be attentive to every action, every word, and most importantly, every intent behind them from each of the candidates. We must be hyper-attentive, as if our very democracy hangs in the balance. As if.